Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diving Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. This week on the podcast, 2 divers have been sucked into a dam inlet during a dive, highlighting the dangers of diving around dams and similar waterways. Trolling in Malta is putting scuba divers in serious danger, which is actually leading to protests in the area, and 2 new specialty courses have been released. So the first news story is 2 rebreather divers using scooters died on a night dive earlier this year after apparently venturing a bit too close to a Belgian hydroelectric dam. Christopher Gouda and Frederic Pochet, both from Liège, disappeared in the Plate Tay near the southern town of Trois-Chapelles in Hainault on the 4th of January. The son of one of the men was concerned that he had not been in touch, and finding his vehicle still in the lake's car park raised the alarm. The Belgian Civil Protection Dive Team, using 10 professional divers and sonar equipment, began the search the following day. Gouda, who was 46, was single and worked in banking, was described by fellow dive club members as a experienced diver. Pochet, who was 59, was not affiliated with the same clubs, but also is thought to have been experienced. The 350-hectare lake, a scuba diving and sailing attraction, is part of a complex of 5 reservoirs that make up the largest lake area in Belgium. It includes the Plate Tay Dam, which was built in the 1970s, and at 790 meters long, it's the biggest in the country, and it's equipped with a pumped storage hydroelectric power station. The lake would be dived whilst the dam turbines were working, but divers would tend to stay at a depth of 20 meters, with the turbines clearly audible below. But during that night, because it was a night dive, 2 of the 3 had been in operation. The top of the entrance tunnel to the turbines lies 50 meters deep, so that excludes most recreational divers, and it extends down to 70 meters. Gouda and Pochet had decided to dive the site using DPVs at around 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and whilst on site, the dive center was closed at that time of day. The search team found the divers' equipment, including their rebreathers and their DPVs, in a fragmented state, but the men's remains were not found until the following day downstream of the dam. Benoit Michel, who runs the Lake Dive Center, stated that the men must have ventured far from the 2 authorized diving areas and too close to the inlet entrance. At that point, they would have been drawn in by the powerful flow. An autopsy carried out the following day confirmed that the recovered body parts were those of the 2 divers. Quote, "They would have been caught by the huge turbine present in the watercourse," the local public prosecutor's office stated. So yeah, obvious. Well, what I'd like to think is obvious advice. Stay away from these kind of waterways. I always try and educate as much as possible on the dangers of delta P, which is a change in the pressure. And if you have a large body of water and then a small inlet or outlet, then you've got the weight of that water basically pushing you through, and you will go through. So it is just, if you're ever diving in any of these kind of areas or waterways where there's like sluice gates or anything, just be extremely careful. And yeah, no matter how good your fins are or your DPV is, it will not help you from being sucked in, basically. So do be extremely careful on these kinds of dives. Trolling is said to be endangering scuba divers in Malta, but it's not online trolling, it's a fishing method. And now a group of scuba divers from Malta are getting together to protest about the practice. So trolling is a bit like long line fishing. It involves one or a number of baited lines being drawn through the water by a fishing boat at a steady, slow speed, which is an obvious danger for scuba divers if you're just cruising along and all of a sudden a fishing line with a series of hooks is just dragged across you, it's going to cause some damage and potentially lift you up out of the water, or at least up to the surface. One of the group of some 50 protesters, diving instructor David Agius, has told Malta Today that these boats are causing a serious safety hazard to professional divers and the divers they guide as they troll for surface or pelagic fish in the waters around the island and shipwrecks. The sound of engines in the vicinity is heard much closer for a diver in the water, possibly leading to inexperienced or visiting divers unfamiliar with such noise to panic. Adding that an automatic reaction could be for some divers to hold their breath. Quoting, holding breath or getting snagged by a fishing hook may result in uncontrolled ascents, causing extreme danger to the diver, the instructor, and the guides, as well as potentially fatal consequences. So previous fishing restrictions have only recently been relaxed around the wreck sites by Malta's Fisheries Minister Anton Rafalo. These zones are said to make up less than 1% of coastal waters, so the divers are arguing that they are not crucial to fishers' livelihoods. They want more education and patrols to safeguard divers, who they argue have been subjected to a number of near misses by boats in recent years. They also want clarification of maritime regulations. Fishers are required to keep a, quote, safe distance from divers under the new rules, but the divers argue that the term is open to interpretation. Clearly, what a safe distance is for one person stood in a boat or sat down in a boat is going to be a little bit different from a diver in the water with these fishing hooks being dragged around them. Quoting, for divers, the only safe distance would be outside the small delineated conservation zones and their shore entrances, which at their largest consist of little more than 2 football grounds, Agius told the paper. And he said that a rise in the number of diving tourists, and in particular the increasing popularity of freediving in the islands, was likely to exacerbate the level of risk. The issue has been raised on divers' behalf in Malta's parliament by MP Ivan Bartolo, though the fisheries minister countered that a balanced approach was required between the needs for professional fishers and divers. I kind of get that argument, but when we are looking at areas that small, really how many fish can be there? And even if there is this safe refuge for fish, just let them have it so that they can. Because otherwise, if no area is safe for the fish are just going to disappear, basically. But if there are these safe refuges, then they're going to breed more, you'll get more fish, and you'll catch more in the long run. Just allowing all of this overfishing in all these areas is just short-sightedness, and it just increases the danger for divers. And if that happens, then fewer divers are going to visit, and you're going to get less tourist money. It just... From my side, it seems like a no-brainer, but we'll see what happens. The British Sub-Aqua Club, more commonly known as BSAC, has partnered with conservation charity Sea Wilding to introduce the Underwater Surveyor course, which is designed to make surveying fun and accessible and basically get more divers in the water, getting more important information and structured information, so that that can be given to the proper scientific studies. Surveying is great fun, gives participants a new appreciation of the underwater world because you kind of know what you're looking at and you get all the measurements, and it's a bit more interactive as opposed to just swimming over stuff. You're paying a bit more attention to it, and it's the first vital step in implementing conservation measures. However, as with many citizen science projects, it can be challenging to get started, knowing how and what to survey, and in particular, what to do with the data that is collected. So that's what this course is aimed at educating. The all-new Underwater Surveyor course is the ideal first step towards getting involved in protecting the ocean and its habitats. It teaches the skills to use a variety of surveying techniques while snorkeling or scuba diving, and empowers participants to play a valuable part in ocean science and conservation. So the Underwater Surveyor comprises an e-learning module, so you can do a bit of homework at home, as well as practical in-the-water training, where students learn how to undertake their own marine surveys. The e-learning is available to everyone through the BSAC website, and the practical training is delivered by BSAC clubs, regionally organised events, or commercial dive centres. To enroll in the course and complete the practical training, all students must hold a minimum of BZAC Ocean Diver or Snorkel Diver qualifications or equivalent and be current BZAC members. There are 2 in-water sessions with 2 surveys required. Survey dives will be conducted within the qualification and experience limits of the divers and snorkelers. In completion of both the Underwater Surveyor e-learning theory and the practical elements of the course, students will gain the BZAC Underwater Surveyor Skill Development Course qualification and can request a qualification card recognizing their achievement. The knowledge and skills learned from the underwater surveyor give everyone, young and old, the ability to contribute to marine science every time they enter the water. Underwater surveyors can get involved by protecting the oceans and its habitats, using the skills and techniques taught on the course, as well as having the confidence and opportunities to make a difference. Whether collected by snorkel or scuba diving, the data collected will help make decisions that lead to the preservation and possibly restoration of crucially important ocean habitats. The course costs £45 for members and £55 for non-members, and if you head over to the BZAC website, you can sign up today. And yeah, it is quite important because there's a lot of scientists and surveyors out there that they need all of this information, and from what they can do themselves, it's fairly limited. But if there's enough data points out there, they can provide a more detailed map and just information of what's going on underwater. So it is important, and if you're just going for a fun dive, then you might as well do a little bit of surveying at the same time and then upload that information. So yeah, it's for a good cause, and it helps to just improve your diving skills, as it were, so that you're paying a bit more attention to what's around you. And the training agency PADI has partnered with Action Camera Supremo's GoPro to create the GoPro PADI Distinctive Specialty Course, a new GoPro specific specialty certification for certified scuba divers, providing training on how to use GoPro cameras, accessories, and the quick video editing app to become the ultimate storyteller and content creator. Quote, "We created this course with GoPro to give scuba divers a new superpower that enables them to capture and share meaningful underwater adventures," says Lisa Nicklin, the Vice President of Growth and Marketing for PADI Worldwide. Quoting, "Learning to dive will change your life forever. Learning to capture and share content with your GoPro will inspire others to do the same, while also raising awareness and action to help heal our shared blue planet." So it's similar to the PADI photo or video specialties, but more focused on GoPro specifics and their video editing app, because then you can edit and splice your videos, upload them to social media, get more people into scuba diving, and just improve our sport. So yeah, again, if you're interested, you can head over to PADI's website, and I'm sure there'll be a link on there. I can't see a price for it, unfortunately, but yeah, if you're interested, head over to PADI.com. And while we're on the subject of underwater photos and videos, a innovative Eastern Pacific fish finding expedition involving no fewer than 11 underwater photographers has resulted in the description of a new wrasse species, now dubbed, brace yourselves, Halicoires sanchezi. The research was carried out in the waters off of Mexico and is detailed in a new study. In November 2022, an international team led by Carlos Sanchez, after whom the fish is named, headed to the archipelago with the experienced tropical sea photographers and videographers, visiting all 4 islands to compile a comprehensive inventory of their shallow shore fish. Between them, the photographers captured over 5,500 diagnostic underwater fish images, covering at least 152 species, and examples of the unidentified wrasse species were all documented photographically in situ before 8 specimens were collected to be documented again at various stages of the studies. Now, anyone who's looked into fish IDs knows just how many wrasse species there are and just how dimorphic they can be. So to be able to not only photograph and identify that, hey, that's a new fish species is an incredible feat, let alone catch that many of them to be able to denote it as a new species. And the collection was made off San Benedicto, which is the northernmost island of this remote archipelago, which lies some 400 kilometers south of Baja, California. The quote, particularly elusive wrasse had only previously been caught on camera in 2013. Oh, okay, so they were aware that there was a new species out there, so they kind of were looking for it, but the photographer reporting it to be an evasive fish, actively avoiding divers and proving especially difficult to photograph. The fish is related to the, I think it's the Halichoeres wrasse throughout the region, but differs from two similar species from the Cocos Islands in Panama, because it has a black spot on the bony flap that protects its gills, and the male has a prominent black area on the tail fin. Juveniles closely resemble these two lookalikes, but they have an oblong black spot and a yellow dorsal margin on the mid-dorsal fin. So this is why it makes it so hard to identify new species, because they're so similar except for these minute little differences. But full details on the species and the team's unusual working methods can be found in the study published by scientists from the Guy Harvey Research Institute, the Ocean Science Foundation, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County in the journal Peer J, and links will be down in the description. And in a historic step to protect marine life from underwater noise pollution, a new campaign body, International Fund for Animal Welfare, has welcomed new mandatory limits set this week by the European Commission in a move that represents a first for Europe. So half of underwater noise globally is produced by commercial shipping, which dominates the background sound experience by ocean dwellers and sometimes scuba divers too. If you've ever had a small boat pass, not even over the top of you, but nearby you, you'll know just how noisy that is, and you can feel it when you have like ocean liners and all that kind of stuff. Incredible noises. So if you live in the ocean, that's all you're going to be hearing. And this constant din hinders marine animals from detecting and interpreting biologically important sounds, says the IFAW. It can also change predator-prey interactions and community structure, compromise food web dynamics and stability, and risk ecosystem productivity and services. So the announcement comes more than a year after the EC Technical Working Group agreed on the limits that EU member states would need to observe and achieve, quote, good environmental status for the ocean. The measures now form a European Union Marine Strategy Framework Directive, or the MSFD, giving countries until this October to update their own strategies in accordance with that directive. While the IFAW has hailed the adoption of mandatory thresholds as a, quote, excellent step, it says it must be complemented by effective enforceable operational measures, with the onus on the Commission to provide clear guidance to member states on how to achieve them. IFAW's quote, Blue Speeds campaign calls for a speed ceiling of 75% of the maximum design speed of commercial vessels to be enforced in European seas, claiming that this would be, quote, the most viable and easily achievable practice the shipping industry can implement to respect the adopted thresholds. It says that a recent study found that adhering to blue speeds in European waters could reduce noise pollution by 25% and risks of ships colliding with whales by 23%. It would also lower fuel consumption, carbon dioxide emissions, and air pollution from shipping by about 8% each. Quoting, underwater noise pollution is a little known but growing threat to the health and lives of whales, dolphins, and other marine species, said the IFAW's head of EU policy and campaigns. IFAW is calling for immediate action to turn down the noise, and the implementation of blue speeds for commercial ships in European waters offers an immediate and straightforward solution. The recently re-advised The recently revised EU Environmental Crime Directive recognises the threats of underwater noise pollution by including it in the list of criminal offences. This makes the impact of the thresholds communicated today even stronger. Implementing blue speeds would greatly help member states to implement new underwater noise limits and the EU to honour international obligations. So don't be surprised if things take a little bit longer to